Your life is how you experience your reality. And how you experience your reality is 100% completely up to you. Russian physics researcher Vadim Zeland, author of the life-transforming book Reality Transurfing, has declared our guest Renee Garcia as his U.S. partner. Renee was in a very bad place when she first found Reality Transurfing, and she began applying the concepts and completely transforming her life. But not only that, she took the ball and ran with it by sharing these concepts with all of us through her videos and Facebook groups and courses.
Yes.
This is our third episode of Surfing with Renee with fellow reality transurfer, Renee Garcia. Welcome back, Renee.
Hi, thanks for having me, Dee. I always love to do this with you.
How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. I am living in my own world, totally. I've been on the same path for the last couple of months, just really diving into creating lessons and content and videos and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've just been in full on create mode, and I'm realizing now that in creating my own world that I live in, I'm kind of like sometimes met by harsh reality when I go outside and I forget the state of affairs. And then I like go into a grocery store or something, and all of a sudden somebody's like trying to usher me into a line, and I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot. I've been surprised probably, I would say at least half a dozen times in the last 2 weeks where I totally lose sight of everything that's going on outside of me. And then I sort of get confronted with it like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember they were talking about this. And some people accuse me of being an ostrich with my head stuck in the sand, but I'm super happy about that.
You know what? I think the volume, I'm having trouble hearing you. I don't know whether I can adjust my volume here, but.
I can actually put on my headphones if that would help.
I don't know. No, I can still hear you though. But you know, it's interesting that you would say that, because I was just thinking about this when I was brushing my teeth this morning, that what would it be like for a person who had no, phone or internet and access to the news and all this? Like, what would it be for that kind of person to go out in the world and see what's going on? Like, they'd be like, what's going on? Like, where is everybody, and why are there signs everywhere saying you can't go in and everything? Because it's like, because this whole like scenario, it really brings to mind about like this whole thing about like what it really is reality, like how much of reality is what we're being told about what's going on out there and about what we're experiencing,
Yeah, so for sure. I actually just got into a conversation on the Facebook group with someone about this because I proposed a question saying, if you could start your own business right now, what business would you start? Have you been reading that thread?
Yeah, and I did the one about my big shop with the music and the artist.
Yeah. And the ITI member said, well, now is not a good time to open a business. And I said, well, I think it's actually the best time to open a business, because there are cracks that you can see between, right? Like if traditional and the most conventional form of the perception of reality that most people are following is like a sidewalk, right? And everybody's going down the same sidewalk. Right. There are those little cracks that most people aren't looking at. And my example was that I'm butted up against a commercial zone where my house is, and I just noticed that a few of the offices went up for lease. So I'm sure you could get a killer deal on a lease right now. People in my primary business are liquidating their inventory. So there's great deals if you want to stock up on inventory. You know, there's all sorts of little things, like my brokerage that I work for, the real estate brokerage. She said that they have never had so many listings for properties in her entire, I don't know, 10 years of business.
Right.
So, and that's the kind of stuff that I've been tuning into. But it's fascinating that there is sort of this mode that everyone is, the majority of people are tuning into. And then there's some others like us that are refusing to just go with the common thing, you know. And it's very, it is really, really, really fascinating, because in my layer of reality, regardless of people trying to argue with me, in my layer of reality, nothing has changed for the negative. In fact, almost any change I've perceived has been for the positive. And I see people trying to argue this against me, and I'm like, and this is the fascinating part to me. Why would you want to argue against somebody seeing something as positive? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is that?
Totally.
Yeah, it's so weird. And you know, I hate to bring up politics on your show, but
It's okay.
Trump is actually a really good example of this. Regardless if you love him or you hate him, he consistently says things that are hopeful and positive, right? Like, we're going in this direction, everything's going to be fine. Next year, it's going to be a boom, right? Regardless if you believe it or not. Regardless if it's bull or not coming from his direction, why would you want to argue somebody saying something positive? Why would you want to see the opposite happen? And this really, really fascinates me.
Yes.
I mean, it's tremendous how many people I see doing this, and I think, why would you want to be right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and like I've noticed this even way before any of this current situation. Like, that's been something like you know, that I've experienced a lot. It's like that, you know, I would be called Pollyanna, like, and all this other stuff, and it's like face reality and all this, and it's like why would you want to talk me out of my reality when I'm like having a good time and enjoying it and it's working for me, right? Because you know, it's that thing that Bashar says. It's like, human beings argue for limitations, you know, and it's like, no, we're limited things, you know, and it's like, no, we're not, you know. But it's like, it depends on what you align with, you know. It's up to you. Like, if you want to align with limitation and negativity, like, go ahead, but then don't try to, you know, tell other people that they have to do that, or if they don't, they're not facing reality, you know.
I know. It is really, you know, when you get into dissecting the programming of the consensus, the population, like what the populace believes, right?
Right.
And really diving deep into that. It is fascinating. Like, why would you want to argue a limiting belief with someone else, you know? And I experienced this the other day when I was talking to my grandfather on the phone. I said, oh, things have been wonderful when I go out for my walks in the morning. Everybody's saying hi. I think we talked about this last time.
Yeah.
How the attitude has changed. People are wanting to connect more and say hello and be friendly and stop and talk. And I was telling my grandfather this on the phone. He said, oh, well, it must be very scary where you live and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, actually, everybody's been super friendly. And he said, well, get ready for that to end really soon. People start getting desperate for money and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why would you want me to see?
Yeah.
but whatever. I mean, every evidence to support all theories, right?
Exactly, exactly. And it's like, that's the thing that I find challenging and that I really want you to be able to get a good hold of is to let people, because it's like, if somebody wants to go down that road, to go like, instead of trying to talk them out of it, or even try to convince them about my point of view, to just think to myself, okay, that's where they are, and that's where what they're exploring right now, and I'm not going to try to talk them out of it, but I'm still going to hold on to my own inner power and not let it affect me. Like, it's basically like letting everybody be where they're at, but going like, my state of being, I control my state of being, and like any kind of circumstance or any kind of thing, I decide how that affects my state of being, right? And have that power. And then, more and more, this thing about when people try to convince me about how things, suck or whatever, it's like to just zip the lip, not have to defend myself about it, right?
Yes, that's so true, because that really is becoming, and I actually did a video on this today, becoming reactive, right?
Oh, I
And
can't wait to see it.
yeah, so the difference between being reactive and proactive
Right.
was the video. And here's the thing: you are adhering to your own script, what you have decided for yourself, your version of reality, your perspective, until you become reactive. Once you become reactive to an external circumstance, some sort of external stimuli, another person, then you essentially get taken away from your own script, and you become part of that other script that you are reacting
Mhm.
towards. It's the same sort of idea as Vadim states is the deal with pendulums and feeding them negative energy. You're
Right.
still participating even if you hate the pendulum. So
Yes.
you're still losing yourself if you're reacting against somebody else's perspective and
Right.
getting a little bit taken away from yours. I guess the key is when you do it, and I think a lot of people are being challenged with this right now, especially transurfers. Wow. But just becoming aware of when it happens to you,
Right.
and be
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't have to be a reactive, responsive being. I have the ability to challenge myself to stay focused on my own thing. And it's a practice like anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And in one sense, it's almost like, because you know how there's this whole mirror world and all that. It's kind of like, for trans surfers out there that are struggling, it's like, remember, you are interested in reality transurfing. You want to practice reality transurfing. Here is your material to work with. Like, what better material can you have than unprecedented world events, right? And another thing that I heard from Ventino Macero that I resonate with and I apply. It's like, because we hear all these different versions about what's going on. The new world order, and like there's
Yeah.
something behind the pandemic. So these hear all these different versions, and it's like, you can think of it as looking in a window, right? So it's like, you look in a window and you see this reality, and you can find it like entertainment and amusement, and you can still watch it, or listen to it or whatever, and as if like you're listening to a movie, watching a movie or something, because it doesn't have to be in your reality. So it doesn't mean you don't necessarily look at these things, right? And you look at all these different things that people are saying, and then you go like, and then in my reality, I'm aligned with the one where humanity is ascending like never before, and the collective light is lighter than ever before, and all this. But then I
Yeah.
can still look at these things but not react, and just go, okay. And I kind of like that word entertainment too, because it's like, it's all entertainment. It's like, well, different people are saying that different things are going on, but what is really going on is our experience, right? Because your
Yeah.
life is how you experience reality, and how you experience reality is 100% completely in our power if we recognize it, right?
Yes, and the one thing that has resonated with me so much in the transurfing modality is the evidence to support all theories.
Yes,
It,
yes.
it it really has changed everything about um, how I how I what you're talking about, like you know, arguing for yourself, right, against somebody else trying to say, well, you should view it like this. I mean, in truth, nobody is wrong. Everyone's perception of reality is the truth for them. So trying to figure out what the truth actually is, there is no truth. There is no what is really going on. There really isn't, because there is so much information flying around. There's so much evidence, material, variations of reality, theories, all this stuff. There's no possible way that anyone is ever going to cut through all that stuff and realize the truth. You know, I mean, there is no truth. So it's such a cool concept, though, because for me, this has been a really powerful way for me to stay tuned into my script, my layer of reality that I have created for myself. Because anytime and I've gotten into this, you know, in the past, where I've taken a different stance, like maybe I would post something on social media and somebody would say, well, but isn't that just you're being selfish then, or you're being this? And then I would start to argue against their thing and get wrapped up, like we were just talking about, losing yourself and getting sucked onto somebody else's script. And now when anybody ever does that to me, I can interact with them from the position of, like what you're saying, entertainment, right? This is entertaining to me to sort of play out two different scenarios and play into it. But I by no means ever intend to argue against somebody else's point of view or defend mine, because it's really just, at the end of the day, it's futile. What is actually being gained there? Nothing. And everyone likes to feel they're right, and everyone likes to feel like they've gathered the right evidence. So everybody's feet are planted firmly on the ground with their own belief, just as you have yours and I have mine. We're not going to just listen to somebody else's argument and go, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You know, this is something that a person comes to on their own when they have made a choice that they want to adopt a different perspective, and then grab that evidence to support that theory.
Right.
And it's a very changing your perspective is a very self-driven thing. Nobody's going to argue something and then you're just like, oh, well, that's it. So it really is lost energy at the end of the day, you know? Unless you know you're just entertaining yourself.
Yeah. You know, and it's not like you can, you know, convince somebody. Like, it's not like somebody has a totally opposite view of you and you're going to sit down and they're going to go, oh, now I see, I was wrong and you're right. Like, that's not going to happen. So it's like, you know, I like this old saying of, you know, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And like, it doesn't mean that you are giving in or becoming a, you know, a doormat or anything like that. But it's like, I love that saying of Vadim's, rent yourself out, right? Because I think that's what he means. You rent yourself out where you don't have to find, like, you have to, you know, show that, you know, you have a more correct view or anything like that. You just go, okay. Like, and I was in a conversation with someone recently too, where they were saying something that was so not like how I feel. And I just said, like, okay. And that was the end of that conversation. And I felt so right, because I thought if I would have said what I was really thinking, it would have not gone to a good place. That it's like, why do I don't have to say it. I can just say, okay, you know, and the person just smiled when I said that. And it was like, we went on to another conversation, and, but it was like, for me, it was a major breakthrough, because it is kind of a real challenge for me, because I do have that in my personality where I want people to see things the way I do. It just, but I'm more and more getting, no, that's not the way to go.
Yeah, there is a very powerful feeling in letting someone else believe that they're right and you're wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's at the end of the day, it doesn't, you can argue with them, or you can let them win, and you'll still walk away with your own personal belief system.
Yeah.
The only difference is that you energetically could suffer by the arguing. So one thing that I've realized in the last couple of months, and I've talked about it a few times on my videos, is that what you were talking about, the two people that are arguing and they're going like this. So this is both people arriving to the same subject with their own sets of inner intention. So they're just inner intention, inner intention, inner intention as hard as they can, and nobody accomplishes anything. And the greatest display of this is on the news when they have the two talking heads arguing against each other and no one's listening. And both people just keep getting louder and more aggressive and louder, and nobody's ever going to penetrate either party by saying something and somebody goes, oh, you know what, that actually makes a lot of sense. It never happens. It's two people coming together over the same subject with their hardcore inner intention, will, ego, all that stuff. And when you start to really see that as a losing proposition for both parties involved, it becomes so much easier to not do it yourself, you know? And the funny thing is people don't even, it comes down to programming. Like, I think we're programmed to think that if someone has an opposing perspective or position, that the thing you're supposed to do is argue. That's what you're supposed to do. Because letting somebody else just exist is not the way we've been programmed. So you're supposed to argue. And I think that when you go against that script and you just go, okay, then the other person just moves on. It's like a weird thing that it just dissipates, and they don't get the thing that they want to do that song and dance. So then it just moves on to another. They don't even realize it. They don't even know. They're just
That's
like,
right. Yeah. They don't even know what happened, and they don't even know that you just made a big sacrifice.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, you know, I do it to my grandparents all the time. And I think there's a little tiny part of them that's confused, because they're like, well, wait a second, this isn't how this is supposed to play out, you know? But then there's nothing to grab onto.
Yeah.
So then they just kind of move on to space. It's so powerful. It really, really is.
Yeah.
Save your energy for yourself is the bottom line, you know? Either they're going to get it, or the pendulum's going to get it, or the external script that doesn't serve you is going to get it, or you're going to get it. Those are the only two options. You know?
And it's like, it comes from this place of inner groundedness, like inner peace, inner connection, inner groundedness. And it's kind of like, if you know who you are, and you have control of your state of being and all that, you have no need to defend yourself or prove yourself. Like, that need comes from a ego level, or quite a low level, quite a low timeline, or whatever you have with this person that's like running around, like.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it's not being, if you feel you need to argue somebody else's perspective or your own, you are feeling insecure because you need others to agree with you or see things your way. And when you just don't care, that's like, gosh, I really am starting to understand the value of not caring what other people think of my perspective and not caring about other people's perspective. Now, I'm not saying that I don't humor someone or entertain someone expressing their beliefs or whatever, but at the end of the day, I really don't care about anybody else's perspective.
Right.
Even if I listen to them, it's like I hear them and then I'm back to my own thing. I really, because everyone's perspective is constantly changing and evolving anyway.
Yes.
Why are you going to get emotionally involved in somebody else's perspective?
Right. Yeah.
Unless it's harming you or someone else. And unless it's, and then I think there's a little bit of a opportunity there for you to say, well, but as long as it's not harming anything,
right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who really cares?
And and the interesting thing too is like it's the energy of it, right? It's not what they're saying, because it's like, how does their perspective affect their beingness, right? Because if they're talking and their perspective is one of joy and happiness and connection and all that other stuff, and it has a certain energy. And if someone has a perspective where they're all freaking out, it has a different energy. And it's kind of like they have the different energy, but that is allowed to them, unless they ask, unless they say, how can I look at this different or something. It's like if they don't want your opinion, and they're feeling like that, it's like we have to let them feel like that. And that's the hard part. When people are talking like their perspective is one that is damaging their physiology, because our physiology responds to our perspective. It really does, right? So those are the real challenging ones, where people are really freaking out and damaging themselves, damaging their the way that they're experiencing life. Those are, I find, the most challenging ones, because it's like, hey, I'm not going to challenge somebody who's all happy and they might think different things about details than I do, but it's like, hey, they're fine. Their body's functioning well because their immune system's well, because they're in a good place. The challenging ones are the people that are, oh my God, the sky is falling,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember, it was probably about a year ago, I walked into the little grocery store by my house, and I walked in to two men getting into an altercation at the checkout stand. And the entire place was, you could hear a pin drop besides them yelling at the top of their lungs. Everyone was stopped, and these two guys were getting into a fight. There was one smaller, older man getting in the face and just yelling and security came in, broke them up. When we ended up leaving the grocery store, both guys were in handcuffs and the police were there. But after we walked in and heard this going on and the security came and took them away, I actually went to check out in that same line, and I asked the attendant, I said, what was that all about? And she said that the older man, the smaller one, was upset that the other guy that he had more than a dozen items, because it was the dozen
the express lane.
Yeah, it was the express lane, and he had more than a dozen items, and he was mad, and they started, and I walked away from that thinking how this is so prevalent of people getting themselves so worked up over daily things, small things that are truly insignificant. But this is sort of how we are affected by some of our external sources like the media and stuff like that. The perfect example was the people fighting over the toilet paper, at the grocery stores. So we're told that we need to defend ourselves and argue, and I think collectively there's a lot going right, and I think collectively there's some stuff that is really layering, the programming is layering on top of people, and that is that We've got to defend our every single move, but there's such power in just letting go, because really those two guys that got into that altercation, both of them were in handcuffs on the floor outside the grocery store. How much time and energy was wasted in that? If they would have just let the guy go that had 13 items instead of 12.
Yeah.
It really comes down to measuring, is it worth it?
Right. And that is such a good example. It's these little things that provide the examples, because that's a really good example of how we generate our own hell. Because like that guy generated that whole thing just by being upset about that thing. Whereas another guy would have just go, oh, like let him go, whatever, maybe he's in a hurry, or like no big deal, and it's like that. So like that person is probably blaming the other person for creating his hell, when yet he was the one who generated it, right? And he's probably blaming the other guy. I bet you he's probably still talking about it and telling people how the nerve of this guy who had one extra item, the nerve of, and it's like a totally good example, and where
for both people too, because the angry man got, the angry man really got balancing forces is what happened to him.
Right.
Because what he was upset about was that the bigger gentleman that had more than 12 items was in front of him, and he was obviously in a hurry. So what ended up happening was he lost even more time, because he ended up in handcuffs in front of the store.
Yeah.
But the guy that had more than 12 items, when the other guy started to get angry, what would have been a good move for him was to simply apologize to the man and say, oh, I'm really sorry. Why don't you go in front of me?
Yes.
Again, this is two people coming together over the same subject with inner intention. And these results can be explosive when there's a path of least resistance there that everyone has access to, and have better results, like lower blood pressure and better health and all sorts of benefits. But we're pretty responsive as a species right now to defend our,
I saw a really good one on the bus just the other day, because like now we have these double buses where they're like two with an accordion kind of thing in the middle. But anyway, there aren't that many people yet still on the buses, but the guy was having trouble with the driver was having trouble with the back door, right? And so like whenever people would get off, he'd yell like, use the front door. Well, there was another guy who was sitting further back, and he hadn't been paying attention to that. So when he was trying to get off, he was at the back door, and then he's going yelling, open the back door, please. And the driver yells like really impatiently, like, I said, use the front door. But what happened after that was really beautiful, because the guy then he goes, oh, sorry, and then he goes to the front of the bus, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And then the guy goes, oh, no problem. And then, oh, have a nice day. And they like totally made up, because the driver was impatient because he had said it so many times, but he didn't mean to attack the guy. And the guy who he yelled at didn't take it personally, and he just apologized. So it's like, here's two people, they had a confrontation, but then and then it was like, oh, I felt so good in my heart, because like when the other guy was getting off and the guy's going, oh, no problem, have a good day. Or it could have just been, how many times do I have to tell you this?
Yeah.
But so, you can always resolve it no matter where you're at, just by apologizing, and right away the person picks it up. Like when that guy apologized, the driver, right away, he felt that heartfelt apology. And that's why the beauty of the moment is so important, because it's like, no matter what we have done or what we have said in this moment now, we can come from the heart and everything heals. Like there's this thing about like, in the moment is complete healing, right? So it's like, it can undo everything, because this is the thing about instant karma too. Like some people think if they did something bad, now they're going to have to reap the karma for the rest of their lives. But the karma is instant, where you go like, you fully, totally in your heart repent or feel bad or regret and send apologies, that karma is melted. You now don't have to live 2 more lifetimes to make up for it. It's how you are now in the moment.
Yes, there is really such power in that, in, you know, realizing in the moment that you can eradicate something, you can change a frequency, you can resolve an issue. One of my favorite games to play, my little transurfing, one of my mini transurfing games I love to play with myself is when I encounter someone that is rude to me, right? Let's say
Right.
I go to a bank or a government office or something, and
Right.
one of the employees is, I can tell, in a really bad mood, or doesn't like me for some reason initially, or is irritated, or just has a negative attitude or whatever. And I can wake up in that moment rather than being responsive to them and being like, oh, I'm just going to be rude right back to her.
Right.
But waking up and saying, I see myself, I see my reality, I see what's going on here, and realize, and playing a game. I actually quantify it now. I say to myself, I think I can turn this person's attitude in, I'm going to say, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And what I will attempt to do is, and I'm oftentimes successful, and I love playing this game, and this is why I love encountering people in bad moods. I will see how quickly I can turn their bad mood into a positive, into some sort of positive exchange. And I can actually, like, try to get the person to a place where, you know, sometimes I've even had wild things happen where they end up walking back around the counter and coming out and giving me a hug or something. You know? Like, I will try to flip people to the other side.
Yes.
And it really is a very, very powerful practice, because you realize quickly the
Yes.
power of your own frequency. And
Yes.
how, if you can just assess the situation and say, okay, so why do I feel this person is rude right now? Well, this person's probably encountering a bunch of other rude people. So how can I break that up? Maybe they're not used to people making eye contact and asking, how is your day going? Right? And then you can melt someone. You can melt a negative attitude with tuning into them, making eye contact, asking how they're doing, and projecting a different frequency than what they've been receiving for the previous hours or whatever. And it's amazing. It really, really is amazing. This is social transurfing at its best.
Yes.
You know? And I I love it. I love it. It's so good. And it's one of my little favorite games. I love them.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because that was actually my job. Like, before I retired, was like, I worked in a contact center for our utility, and one of the things one of my responsibilities was, if an angry customer wanted to speak to a supervisor, then I would have to take the call, right? And it was such a good opportunity to do that. You know, like, namaste, I would go like, the highest in me meets the highest in you, and like, it's so interesting how, if you really sincerely, honestly connect on a heart level, the person responds. And one of the things too that I love is where, like, I would listen to, the reps on the phone, and I'd hear somebody dealing with an angry customer, and like, they were so skilled. Like, I used to say, like, these are angels or they're therapists or something, because there's something else going on. When someone phones and they're yelling, it's because shit's going on in their life, right? And the person they're yelling at, they don't even know the person, right? But one of the beautiful things is when people would call back and ask for a supervisor, and I take the call, and they would say, I just want to tell you, I just spoke with Renee, and I was yelling at her, and she was so good to me. And even though I was mean to her right to the end, she helped me. And will you please tell her that I'm sorry? Like, that would happen, right? They would call back, because after they hang up, they'd go, oh my God, like, that person was so nice to me, and I was so mean to them. And they would actually call back and just say, tell them, and there's like, well, like, so even when you don't even know that you've affected them. So like, the person, like, on the phone would not even know that they affected the person, right? And so, like, and not everybody's going to call back. So, like, we are affecting people without even knowing it, even if they don't respond to it right away, later it's incubating, right?
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And you really do, for me, I really have started to understand that I do leave an impression everywhere I go of some kind. We all are. We're
Yes.
all leaving impressions, you know, and the people that are the doomsdayers right now, right? And the people that are panicking and inciting panic and seeing things as negative and all this stuff, they're going around and they're leaving the residual of that sensation that they're, you know, that they're creating inside of themselves, and they're going out into the world and then stamping everywhere they go with these little impressions of that stuff. And there really is, like, if somebody really does believe that things aren't going well, then it's the only control you have is your own, of yourself, right? And
Right.
go out into the world then and try to leave a little more positive of an impression rather than fuel the thing. I think that's the part that's the most confusing to me right now, is like we were talking about earlier, why would you want a negative
Right.
why are you going to perpetuate something negative? And in our encounters with each other, I think we should all strive for the objective of leaving whatever it is, even if you're just paying for your gas at the gas station,
Right.
leave the attendant with a positive feeling, you
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
leave the postal worker with a positive feeling, leave the,
Hmm.
you know, just try
Hmm.
to extend positivity, especially if you feel that things aren't going in a nice direction.
Right.
Then up the positivity. Don't
Yeah. Yeah.
don't add to it, you know.
Yeah, because there always is advantage, always, 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 right? And so, and that's the thing. It's like no matter what anything looks like, there's advantage. And even if the advantage is nothing other than I have control over my state of being, that's a huge advantage. If you can't find anything else, you got that, right?
Yes, totally. If that's all you have, that's, I mean, yeah, but you know, I think we are led to believe that we need to influence others, where we have the power to do so, but let's just use our powers for positive if we are going to influence somebody
Right,
else.
right.
But at the end of the day, I think we just need to focus on our own frequency. If everybody just
Hmm.
focused on their own frequency.
Yes. And you know what, that is it, like that is all you need to know, right? And like what you were saying before, the tough two things, say it, I'm aware of myself, I'm aware of my,
I
say,
see myself, I see my reality.
yeah. And so if that's all you have, that's all you need, because it's um like, you know, if a friend or something is stressed out, and I'll ask them, like, do you want to be stressed? Like, is that how you want to feel? Because it's like, oh, well, no, I don't want to feel like that. And then it's like, well, then who has the power to change that, right? Because it's like, it's everything comes down to awareness, right? It all comes down to
Yes.
awareness. It's like, are we aware? And it's just like to like those angry people that will call utilities or whatever and yell their heads off, or people having fights in supermarkets or whatever. It's like, they're not really conscious, because if their conscious awareness could see them, they wouldn't choose to act that way, right? And so it comes down to, you know, like, who's going to choose to be an asshole? Well, I don't know, someone did tell me that there are people who choose to be assholes, but that's another
No,
story.
I know what you're saying though. I mean, I think that if I were to see a compilation of videos of myself in my worst moments, I would probably, one, I would be utterly embarrassed for myself. And two, I would probably feel like I didn't really understand what I was looking at. You know what I'm saying? Like getting wrapped up, getting taken along for a ride down a script that you didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the grocery store example is the perfect example, right? Because both of these characters got caught up in someone else's thing and they just let it, you know, let it go. But it really does come down to awareness and feeling as though you are the one calling the shots and making making your choices, acting, responding from an emotionally balanced place, rather than, again, being responsive, just getting lost. And I think that's when, quote unquote, bad things happen, right? Is when somebody just and off and running. And gosh, so many people are doing that right now. That is one thing that is, I think, and I think that people being at home a lot and then going out into public, a lot of people are being nice. Where I live, everyone's being nice, but the few times that I have seen stuff on the news and I see people not being so nice, it really is, I think, people just being overstimulated because they're sitting at home, and then they go out into the community, they get overstimulated and they get sucked into another script, and just be aware of what you're saying, how you're acting, what you're doing, how you're responding, who you're interacting with, what their frequency is. Don't get wrapped up in theirs. Stay true to yourself and your intention to be positive, hopefully, hopefully.
And it's a ripple, like it's a ripple effect. Like every single person is actually a packet of energy, and and we're sending out ripples of our energy. So, and the ripples go out, ad infinitum or whatever. It's like, so what are we aware of the ripple? Is that the kind of ripple we want to send out? What kind of ripple? And Vadim says, we are kings and queens of our world. And that's true. Like you are, like everybody out there and everybody, you are the king and queen of your world. Like this is your world. Like you are living in your world, right? Well, that's huge. It's amazing. Like you are the queen or the king of your world and you're in it. So and it's all about how you choose to experience it and how you choose to perceive it. And that is your life.
How you rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you rule affects others, that in turn affects you.
Yes.
So why not be the best king or queen? Why not rule with integrity and this whole thing, like the thing with the toilet paper and people getting out of control. Why would you ever let that happen to you?
I don't know what that whole thing is. That's a cosmic joke. I don't know what that is. But it's like, like someone had put out a meme in the very beginning when that happened, that, this toilet paper fiasco was showing us that there's more assholes out there than we thought, But anyways, the thing is that, as much as, I'm the queen of my world and you're the queen of your world, everyone else is the queen and king of their world, so it's like we are kings and queens dealing with other kings and queens, and whatever their kingdom is like is up to them, but to acknowledge that as well, right?
Yes, totally. Yep. It's like the old saying that my grandma used to say, tend to your side of the road, I'll tend to mine. It really is. It really is. Like, just don't get involved in the perspectives of others, unless it's entertainment or you're maybe helping someone. But, other than that, it really, and it's interesting because somebody asked me the other day on Transurfing TV in one of my videos, in the comments, they said, isn't this whole transurfing thing just really selfish? That you're just thinking of yourself and your own reality and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, actually it is. Because first of all, I'm not going to argue. If that's how they see it, that's how they see it. But yes, it is. But it's selfish in a way that you're caring for your own layer of reality. And in turn, you're not damaging anyone else's. In fact, you're probably, if you're a good transurfer, you are going to benefit other people's realities because you're positive energy and all that stuff. But and this would be a whole other topic for another show, but the whole thing of if you're thinking your own way from your own perspective, then you're selfish, right? Everybody should be a little more selfish and the
Yes.
fact that they should just be concerned with themselves, their
Yeah.
perspective, their layer of reality. Keep it clean, clean up your layer of reality, throw out the junk, get your thing working good for yourself. And I think everyone would be doing much, much better if that were the case.
Yeah. Well, see, like there's a big difference between self-care and being selfish. And the thing is, you got narcissism on one end, and then you got being a doormat on the other end, and then you got your self-care in the middle. So it's like, and I don't blame this person for asking that, because a lot of women were raised that way, that they have to sacrifice everything for their family and for this and for
Yes.
that. So like the women that were raised, it's interesting, there was a woman who said that, against men, but it's just this thing about women tend to, well, I mean, I shouldn't break it up into one. I guess men will do that too when they work too much to, so I guess it can be anybody, but it's like,
Different reasons.
that you're selfish if you have self-care. But the thing about it is you can't, it's that airplane thing, like you have to put it on yourself before you can help others. So it's like, so it's not about being selfish, right? It's about taking care of yourself, and we have a right to take care of ourselves, right?
Totally, totally. Yes.
So, but you don't want to be narcissistic, and you don't want to be a doormat. You got to find that balance.
Yes, yes. This is a very, I was raised in a family that was very stoic in nature, and my ancestry comes from Northern Europe. People that had very challenging existence. That were very. I don't want to say emotion didn't really play a part of, there
Yeah.
was, we've got to persevere and, my
Emotion's a luxury, right?
yes, exactly. Or if you were emotional, you were being selfish or causing an upheaval in the program or whatever, and that you shouldn't really, you shouldn't really be emotional or look out
Right.
after yourself, that you had to think. And this, a lot of this comes from you being born and raised into a poverty kind of situation where everybody just needs to shut up because we got to keep the thing going. We got to survive, right? Survival and
Yeah.
emotion don't really go
Yeah.
very well together.
Yes.
So and this is something that has taken me a long time to overcome myself. But this whole thing that if you aren't looking after the good of the tribe, then you are being selfish. If you're being emotional,
Right.
then you're not looking after the good of the tribe. And
Right.
it's really, again, it just comes down to perspective. Just like you
Yes.
said, you're not
Yeah.
going to take care of other people unless you
Yeah.
have your, so it really is just a different way of
Yeah.
seeing it. But,
Yeah.
evidence to support all theories.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because the thing about it is when you're just trying to survive, you don't have the luxury to get into like, self-empowerment and spiritual awakening and all that, because you're trying to survive. So it's like these hierarchies of needs. So we have totally different freedoms than our grandparents had, like we're growing up so free, like, and they say that no one has ever been as free as the Western woman, even more than the men, because Western women are more coddled than men in a lot of ways. Like, there's resource groups for battered women, all this kind of stuff. So it's like the Western woman, because then she can decide if she wants to work and raise a family or whatever. So like we are living in this culture, in this society, as the kings and queens, kings and queens never lived like us, because, they never had running water. Like, it's like the things that we have and the luxuries that we have. It's like, okay, yeah, so we have the luxury that we can, hone in on reality transurfing and realize that we can jump timelines and do all this other stuff that we're doing. Whereas if you're just, trying to get bread on the table, you don't have time for that. So
It comes down to that mentality, just trying to get bread on the table. Is that is people being responsive and people being just dealing with, you know, and I'm not going to call out any names here, but people in my family still live like this, where something happens and then they respond, and then something else happens and then they respond, and they're never able to break free of this constant drama ensuing, right? Because they're just responding, and then somebody gets hurt, and then somebody responds, and then somebody loses money, and then somebody, you know, and it just keeps happening and happening and happening and happening. And it's the inability to break out of that script that isn't intended, it's not serving anyone, right? So it's and that is a vortex within a family dynamic that everybody just sort of has to deal with stuff, and, you know, constantly dealing. But like you said, with transurfing, we're given another option that we can choose to see it a different way, or start ruling our layer of reality in a different way, or doing something different. There's not only one mode of operating, but the way that I grew up, we did believe there was one mode of operating, and that was just responding to our environment constantly and trying to keep our head above water, and that was it, you know. But fortunate for me, I found transurfing.
Well, it is a huge, huge, huge leap, the difference between responding to circumstances and letting them affect your state of being. Like, that's a huge leap, because for people who realize that so, you know, it's a way of being to totally live responding to what's happening, right? It's like you were saying, this happens, I respond like this. It's like, now this happened, now I'm happy. Now that happened, now I'm pissed off. Now this happened, now I'm excited. Now this happened. And like, it's expecting the outside world is controlling your inner state. And it's kind of like, so it's a huge leap to kind of go, I'm in charge of my state, and this is happening, and this is how I choose to respond to this, and this is how I choose to respond to that. And so it's like when we choose how we're going to respond to something, whether just having a knee-jerk reaction, that's a big leap. And and you know, I don't know if it's a lot of practice or a lot of awareness, or you know, just maybe different ways to get there, but that's a really important place to get there. It's a higher state of consciousness, and it's not you know, degrading anything, because everybody, you know, like, it's like you don't degrade a 5-year-old for thinking like a 5-year-old, right? So like, wherever anybody's at, it's not like saying something you know, judging it or demeaning it or anything, but it's just like, it's true, you know. You get to a point where you can choose how you're responding, and it's not the circumstance, you know. And the interesting thing about it is that when we think that way, and when we choose that way, our circumstances are fine. Like, I am not affected in any way. I'm affected in a very small way about, you know, this thing that's happening with the world, whatever it is that's happening. But basically, all my needs are met. All my relationships are intact. You know, the sky has been brilliant blue almost every single day. It's like, so it's like, how am I affected? I'm not affected.
I know. Yes. And the fact that somebody would want you to be affected is,
right.
It's it is unfortunate, but, you know, and the whole idea that we are just a compilation of impressions that we've received from our external environment. Some people haven't had the connection with the knowledge that they have the power to choose as we have, right? So what I like to do is I like to just say, oh, I'm so fortunate. I'm so fortunate that whatever impressions I encountered led me to this place where I believe I have the power to choose. And I'm fortunate, and I'm happy that I'm in my position. And if I encounter someone that's sleeping, right, I think, well, they haven't had the same opportunities. So it's unfortunate for them, but I feel good for me. And just allowing whatever it is just to be, you know, and just being grateful that I have what I have, you know.
And, you know, I see it with homeless people because, I mean, I see some really happy homeless people that they're having a good time. Like one guy I saw, him and his friends were singing, right? And it's like
Yes.
they were homeless and they were singing. So like their state of being was not affected by their circumstances. So that's the degree. So like, I mean, I could fall ill or whatever, or like it's not about, it's like we can, like there are people who are, you know, very ill, and they are actually affecting everybody around them in positive ways because of the way that they are experiencing, you know, what they're going through. So it's like, you know, the most tragic thing could be happening, like in that book Man's Search for Meaning, where the guy was in the concentration camp, you know, and that guy, you know, and he chose his state of being and made this, you know, use the advantage, you know, saw the advantage or whatever. And so it's like in any circumstances that we're at, you know, it's and like, I hope nothing, you know, happens. And even like people that are all close to me, like people in my life, they're not affected, right? And it's like this whole thing about anything that's going on in the world out there is what we're being told is happening, right? Because it's like, there's two things. There's what we're experiencing. You know, you wake up in the morning, the sun is shining, you go for a walk, you do this, you do that, whatever. So this is what's happening. And then we're being told this is happening, that's happening,
Totally.
and that's happening.
That's what I say about politics and the news or current events or whatever. That if you I talked about this on that New Year's show that I did with Brian Scott on the Reality Revolution. I said, if you made a commitment that you were going to turn off the news, you weren't going to watch the news anymore, whatever news comes into your laptop or your phone, you were going to get rid of it, right? No more opening your browser and it opens up to CNN or whatever it is.
Right.
And you systematically decided to tune that information out of your life. And you woke up in the morning, like you said, with the sun shining and the this and the that, and you go about your day participating in activities that has nothing to do with any of this information that you're trying to get out of your life, there would be no problem. There would be no, I mean, there isn't a problem anyway, but there would be no, you wouldn't even know any of this stuff was happening. What actually trickles through the media or the whatever news we're being given, whatever actually makes its way through, trickles its way through into your reality is very, very, very small. So small, you probably wouldn't even notice it unless you knew it was there. I mean, this whole pandemic thing, that's a little bit different because like grocery stores, you can see going on, but that's a perfect example, right? Like what I said about me sort of being in my own world so much that I've been abruptly awakened in public because I forget anything's even happening, and then I go out and I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this.
But then even then you can get your groceries, right? I mean, you know, like,
does it really affect you?
Even though I have to follow arrows in the grocery store, I still get groceries. So how I'm not, you know, there's this version of physics called biocentrism. Have you heard of that? And that's where like the guy is saying, and he's a physicist because he's really honing in on this whole thing about that everything is energy and vibration and frequency. He actually says that France doesn't exist unless if you go to France and you're in France, it exists. But if you're not in France, it actually doesn't exist. And he got this right. This whole, I think he's written more than one book about it. But it's because like in that sense, when you really, really think about it, everything is frequency and vibration and energy, you know, and that's, you know, like the atom is mostly empty space and all that. And so like, and he's totally talking about how like, because of biocentrism, and he says that like the world wouldn't exist if you didn't exist, like because your consciousness, right? So like we think that we are in a world out there, but really that world wouldn't be out there if we didn't have our consciousness to perceive it, because we're just perceiving it with energy and vibration and pulses, you know, like our eyes are just receiving, you know. And so that's such an interesting concept. Like, you know, like we assume that France exists, you know, and then we look on the map and all this other stuff. And he says that even your kitchen doesn't exist until you get up and go in there. So it's just an interesting point of view. So it's kind of, you know, cool to be like open-minded and hear all these different versions, because you know what, at the end of the day, we have no freaking idea what's going on around here, you know?
Totally. I mean, it's so funny that you say that, because the more that I learn now, the more that I dive into reality creation and reality transurfing and evidence to support all theories, and really imagining the alternative space as this very limitless place where there is an infinite number of possibilities. And the more this space opens up to me with its limitless nature, the more I realize we have absolutely no clue what is actually going on. And the more that you think you do, the more confused you actually are.
Yeah, I know. Because it's like, the more you think about like, who am I, and what is this consciousness, and what is this world, and what is this reality, and the more you think of it, you can see why geniuses go crazy, or people go that think too much go crazy, because you kind of go like,
Yes.
the more you think about it, the more wild it is. Like it just keeps getting wilder and wilder and wilder. You know, the more you actually think about, like, here we are, like you and I were talking.
Enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the ride. If you stop thinking about time in the way that you understand it, and you sort of expand your consciousness just a little to understand that the human life is super short. It is super, super short.
Yeah.
Then why would you possibly want to waste any of that time feeling negative about anything when it ultimately does not matter at all?
Yeah.
You are going to have very, very little impact, if any, in the grand cosmic scheme of things. Humanity will have very, very little impact, if any, in the grand cosmic scheme of things. Just enjoy it and have fun, and adopt some crazy view of reality where you're some empress serving some, you know, it's like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who cares, you know? But I'm having fun, and you know, I wish others a little more fun, especially right now. I had an associate from one of my businesses messaged me yesterday, and he said, "Hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you," because I kind of tuned out of one of my businesses because I've been doing so much with Reality Transurfing. He said, "How's it going? I haven't heard from you." I said, "Oh, things have been going amazing. I've really been enjoying my time, and I've just been in constant creative mode." And he goes, "Oh, wow, that's really amazing to hear, because so many people aren't doing well right now." And I'm like, gosh, that's so unfortunate, you know, like, but you know, and then I think, oh yeah, people aren't, he's in Los Angeles, where they say there's something like 70% unemployment there right now.
Oh my.
And they're going to be in lockdown and through August. Yeah. And, you know, I wake up to that fact and I think, well, I hope they can maybe find a way to watch some of my Transurfing TV videos. You know?
Yeah. And that's just what somebody's saying, because it's like, again, it's like, you know, somebody's saying like, oh, most people are, you know, and you know what? There are millions of people who are you know, on earth right now, who are really spiritual, and they are focusing on their inner light. And it's not going to be defeated by anything. So it's like, it depends what you're gonna align with, right? So, you know, like if he wants to align with the fact that you know, many people are not doing well, he can align with that. That's okay with me. But I'm not aligning with that. I'm aligning with, there's a light is growing, the inner light is growing, and it's like, and there's this saying that crisis precedes transformation. So usually there's a crisis that happens before something transforms. And that's how this is. This is just something that is generating. It's generating that, you know, the caterpillar goes under a crisis before it turns into a butterfly. The bud that is about to burst into a flower is going under a crisis, right? When you're giving birth, and so it's kind of like, this is the crisis that precedes the transformation, and we're going through a transformation. And you know what? That's what I'm aligning with, and nobody can talk me out of it.
I know, same here. I'm like, when I saw that text, I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, back to my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You are just playing so much. And I love, you said, our time is up here, but I just wanted to bring up one more thing about how you had said recently in one of your videos, which I loved it, that work is not a word for you anymore,
Yeah. I have no concept
play,
of
right?
work
Like all the
anymore.
stuff that you're so-called working on, it's play, right? It's like,
Yes.
it's creative projects. And
it's the same thing we're talking about of the perspective. It's the same thing. It's like you can either view your energy going into something as work, right? Or you can view it as play. It's whatever you choose to adopt. And I haven't had a job in years.
Yeah.
I haven't had a job in years, and I love it. And you'll take that from me.
Yeah. And we can even do that with like housework. It's like, you got to clean the toilet, but it's like, hey, I got a toilet. I don't have a hole in the ground, like in some countries, right? And it's like, so it depends on how we look at it, even when we're doing the simplest of chores and tasks, that we don't have to look at it as work,
Yeah, that's so true. It is so true.
So keep playing.
Yes, totally. I am. I'm in all engines go mode, and
you sure are.
I'm happy as can be. And I just, anybody that's watching this, if you're struggling, with your layer of reality or your perception of reality, Reality Transurfing will help you clean that up for sure, and get you as foolishly gleeful as Dee and I. I'm happy to call myself foolishly gleeful. Dee, one of the moderators on ITI, said that in her advantage thing that she wrote. Be foolishly gleeful, foolishly trusting of your world. And I'm like, I'm a fool. I love it.
Yeah. Well, the fool actually is, in certain cultures or whatever it is actually, there's Alan Watts does a really good talk on the fool. I think he calls it the Joker though. And he's talking about how the Joker actually has the wisdom, right? So it's like to be a fool is actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about the school. Like you're actually starting a school that is something new other than besides your courses, or?
Well, I'm launching a part of my website for members. It's going to be a member site. There's a free version, and all of the resources that are in PDF form, like the Vadim Zeland meditations and the reprogramming stickers and the glossary terms and all the supporting resources for learning transurfing, those will be free.
Okay.
And then there's 2 paid tier versions. One of them, you will have access to all the my trainer's manual that's been endorsed by Vadim, has each lesson broken down into about an hour lesson, and I filmed a video for each concept. So space of variations or alternative space, pendulums, defeating pendulums, the flow variations, all those. They'll have, I believe there's 16 of them. Each concept has a very clinical lesson, pure to transurfing, that's got a video and lots of supporting, educational materials, homework, PDFs, visuals, and then the top tier of the program, you have access to all those lessons, and then you have access to the Mo Money course and Becoming Magnetic course as well. So it's just various stages and tiers of access, and all of the proceeds are going to the support of Transurfing Institute and Transurfing TV. So it's like a donation thing, and then you have weekly calls with me. People will have access to a weekly call with me, and forums where you can discuss the homework and all that kind of stuff. So it's just going to be a lot more resources for people that are new, because I'm encountering a lot of people now that are coming across transurfing and they don't know what it is. And I don't have the time to break it down one-on-one. So I created this website to really, you know, get some more material out there for people to learn. Yeah.
That is fantastic, and the world is ready for it and is hungry for it, actually. So has it launched yet, or?
It hasn't launched yet. The way that we are going to celebrate it and launch it is with Vadim Zeland's interview that I gave him. He still hasn't gotten the responses back to me yet, but I had my questions translated and sent to him, and he's responding now. He's going to send me the information back, his responses, and then that's going to be the highlight of the launch, and everyone can go to the website and see the interview and then see all the different options that are available. But again, there will be a free tier for everyone that wants to go.
Right. Oh, that is fantastic. And, you know, hopefully one of these days we'll have a big gathering of transurfers somewhere in North America where Vadim can join us. And
yes, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be really, really good. I'm looking forward to Outer Intention sort of setting up that, because I would love to see some of these, you know, faces and people. I feel, so I told my boyfriend a couple of times, I said, I feel almost heartbroken at times. I know there's certain people that I might never actually meet, you know, like there'll always just be a single faceted character up on Zoom or something like that. But some people I definitely intend to meet. A nice gathering of transurfers definitely sounds good.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on. I always have so much fun talking with you.
Thank you, Dee. I really appreciate you having me on, and
we'll catch you later.
As well. Yes, likewise.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Okay.